When 8-year-old Maya speaks perfect Japanese to expose a billion-dollar betrayal, a struggling waitress and a young billionaire discover that sometimes the smallest voices carry the biggest truths. Like and comment if you believe children can change the world. The crystal chandelier cast dancing shadows across the mahogany table as Maya Johnson pressed her face against the kitchen's small window, watching her mother Sarah serve champagne to men in expensive suits. At 8 years old, Maya had learned to be invisible in places where her family couldn't afford to belong, but tonight felt different at Romano's, the most exclusive restaurant in downtown Seattle. "Stay quiet in the corner, sweetheart," Sarah had whispered earlier, her waitress uniform pristine despite working double shifts for 3 months. Mama needs this job more than ever. Since her father David's death in a construction accident 6 months ago, their world had crumbled like autumn leaves. The insurance company denied their claims, medical bills towered like mountains, and their small apartment's rent demanded more than Sarah's wages could provide. Maya understood poverty in the way only children forced to grow up too fast could, through empty refrigerators, and her mother's silent tears at night. "The Crawford Industries meeting is starting in Conference Room A," announced Mr. Romano, the restaurant owner, his voice carrying unusual tension. "James Crawford himself is flying in from New York. This contract could make or break several companies tonight." Maya's curiosity sparked. She'd heard whispers about James Crawford, the 34-year-old tech billionaire who'd inherited his father's empire and multiplied it tenfold. Forbes called him ruthless. Others whispered he had a hidden, compassionate side that emerged in his philanthropic work with orphanages across Asia. Through the service window, Maya watched as a tall man with sharp blue eyes and perfectly styled dark hair entered, commanding immediate attention. James Crawford moved with quiet confidence, his handshake firm as he greeted 3 Japanese executives dressed in identical dark suits. Their conversation flowed seamlessly between English and Japanese, discussions of market expansion and technological partnerships filling the air with corporate importance. "Mr. Yamamoto, Mr. Suzuki, Mr. Tanaka," James said, his pronunciation careful but clearly non-native. "I appreciate you flying from Tokyo for this. Our merger could revolutionize artificial intelligence development globally." Maya's breath caught. She understood every word they'd spoken in Japanese. Her father, David, had been more than just a construction worker. He'd served in the military in Japan for 4 years before Maya was born, returning home fluent and passionate about the culture. Every evening, he'd taught Maya Japanese songs, stories, and conversations, making her promise to honor the beautiful language that had given him peace during difficult times overseas. "Our daughter will be a bridge between worlds," he'd told Sarah proudly, watching Maya effortlessly switch between English and Japanese during their nightly language lessons. But after his death, Maya had stopped speaking Japanese entirely, the words too painful to voice without her father's encouraging smile. Now, listening to the executives, something stirred deep within her chest, a connection to her father's memory and a growing sense that tonight would change everything. The meeting progressed with translated documents, handshakes, and champagne toasts. Maya watched James carefully review every page while the Japanese executives spoke quietly among themselves, their faces unreadable masks of business professionalism. "This partnership represents Crawford Industries' expansion into Asian markets," James explained to his legal team. "We're looking at unprecedented growth potential." But Maya's attention fixated on the Japanese executives' private conversation, their words sharp and urgent in their native tongue. "The hidden clause is perfectly embedded. He'll never notice until it's too late." Yamamoto-san confirmed the subsidiary transfer language. "Yes. Once signed, we control 60% of his AI patents and manufacturing rights. Crawford will essentially work for us." Maya's small hands trembled. These men weren't partners, they were predators, and James Crawford had no idea he was walking into a trap that would destroy his company and possibly his life. Her mother appeared in the kitchen doorway, exhaustion evident in her gentle eyes. "Maya, baby, we'll head home soon. Just let Mama finish clearing tables." But Maya couldn't move. She watched James Crawford prepare to sign documents that would betray everything he'd built, while the Japanese executives smiled like wolves anticipating their feast. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. "Sometimes, little bridge builder, You must choose between staying quiet and doing what's right. The strongest people speak up when others cannot. Maya took a deep breath, stepped toward the conference room, and prepared to break her 8-month silence in Japanese, knowing that her next words would either save a stranger's empire or expose her family to consequences they couldn't imagine. The conference room's tension thickened as Maya approached the partially open door, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. Through the gap, she could see James Crawford's pen hovering over the signature line, completely unaware that he was about to sign away his life's work. "Mr. Crawford, Mr. Yamamoto said in accented English, his smile predatory. "This partnership will benefit both our companies tremendously. Your artificial intelligence technology, combined with our manufacturing capabilities, creates unlimited possibilities." Maya pressed herself against the wall, listening as the Japanese executives continued their private conversation in their native language. "Suzuki-san, confirm the patent transfer section is properly hidden in the subsection. Hi, page 47, buried in technical manufacturing specifications. His lawyers will never catch it. Once he signs, Crawford Industries becomes our subsidiary. We'll control everything, patents, research, even his personal shares." Maya's stomach churned. These weren't business partners. They were sophisticated thieves, wearing expensive suits and friendly smiles. Her father's stories flooded back, tales of honor and respect in Japanese business culture, of partnerships built on mutual trust and shared success. These men were betraying everything her father had taught her to admire about Japan. "Maya," Sarah's voice called softly from the kitchen. "Where are you, sweetie?" Maya looked back at her mother, seeing the exhaustion that had become permanent since losing David. Sarah worked 16-hour days, yet they still struggled to pay rent and buy groceries. If Maya spoke up and caused problems at Romano's, her mother might lose this job too. But her father's final lesson echoed clearly. "Little bridge builder, sometimes protecting others requires great courage. The right choice isn't always the easy choice." Inside the conference room, James was reading through the contract one final time, his legal team appearing confident and relaxed. His blue eyes held determination, but also vulnerability, something Maya recognized from her own reflection during their family's darkest moments. "Everything appears standard," said James's lawyer, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Partnership terms, profit sharing, patent cooperation, all favorable for Crawford Industries." Mr. Tanaka exchanged a meaningful look with his colleagues. "Mr. Crawford, we're honored to join forces with such a visionary company. Your father would be proud." James's expression softened at the mention of his late father. He always believed technology should bridge cultures and create opportunities for everyone. This partnership represents that vision. Maya's resolve crystallized. Her father had believed the same thing, that understanding between cultures could create something beautiful and powerful. These men were poisoning that belief. She stepped closer to the door, her small frame barely visible to the adults inside. The Japanese executives were whispering again. "Phase 2 activates 6 months after signing. Crawford will discover the clauses only when we begin asset transfers. By then, legal challenges will be impossible. American courts favor written contracts. His entire company will belong to us, including that revolutionary AI prototype worth billions." Maya's breath quickened. Not only were they stealing James's current assets, but they were also targeting something called an AI prototype that sounded incredibly valuable. James picked up his pen again, clearly ready to sign. His legal team nodded approvingly, and the Japanese executives leaned forward slightly, anticipation glimmering in their eyes. Maya thought about her father's gentle hands, teaching her to write Japanese characters, his patient voice correcting her pronunciation, his proud smile when she mastered difficult concepts. David Johnson had served his country and learned to love another culture, building bridges instead of walls. These men were destroying bridges. "The signature completes our agreement," James said formally, his pen touching the paper. Maya stepped into the doorway. "Wait," she said in clear, perfect Japanese, her young voice cutting through the corporate atmosphere like a sword through silk. "That's not what the contract actually says." Every head in the room turned toward her. Sarah appeared behind Maya, her face pale with shock and fear. "Maya," Sarah whispered urgently, "come away from there right now." But James Crawford was staring at Maya with intense curiosity, his pen frozen mid-signature. The Japanese executives had gone completely rigid, their faces carefully neutral, but their eyes sharp with sudden wariness. "I'm sorry," James said slowly, looking between Maya and the executives. "Did she just speak Japanese?" "Mr. Yamamoto forced a laugh. Children sometimes repeat sounds they hear on television. Very amusing. "No," Maya said firmly, still in Japanese, her father's lessons flowing through her like a river finding its course. "I understand exactly what you've been saying, and Mr. Crawford needs to know the truth before he signs that contract." The silence in the room became electric. Sarah's hand reached for Maya's shoulder, torn between protecting her daughter and fearing the consequences of this confrontation. James Crawford set down his pen completely and looked directly at Maya, something in his expression shifting from surprise to genuine interest. "What truth?" he asked quietly. Maya's small hands trembled as every adult in the room stared at her, the weight of their attention pressing down like a physical force. Sarah's grip on her shoulder tightened protectively, while the Japanese executives' faces had transformed from friendly business smiles to masks of cold calculation. "Sweetie, please come away," Sarah whispered desperately. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly, Mama," Maya replied in English, then turned back to James Crawford. "My daddy taught me Japanese every single day until he died. He said language was a bridge between hearts." James leaned forward in his chair, his blue eyes intensely focused on Maya. "What did you hear them saying?" Mr. Yamamoto stood abruptly, his voice sharp. "Mr. Crawford, surely you're not going to delay this important partnership because of a child's imagination?" "She's 8 years old," added Mr. Suzuki dismissively. "Children often pretend to understand adult conversations," but Maya stepped closer to the table, her father's courage flowing through her veins. In fluent Japanese, she looked directly at Mr. Yamamoto and said, "You told Mr. Suzuki that the hidden clause on page 47 would make Mr. Crawford work for you. You said once he signs, you'll control 60% of his patents and manufacturing rights." The color drained from all three Japanese executives' faces. James Crawford shot to his feet, his expression transforming from curiosity to sharp alertness. "Page 47, he said, flipping rapidly through the contract. "Manufacturing specifications section." "Mr. Crawford," Mr. Tanaka interjected smoothly, "we shouldn't waste time on—" "Found it," James's lawyer interrupted, her voice tight with sudden tension. She was scanning the page with growing alarm. "James, this subsection, it's not what we discussed. This language transfers ownership of AI development patents to the Japanese subsidiary upon signing." "What?" James's voice turned ice cold. Maya continued in Japanese, addressing the executives directly. "You also mentioned something called an AI prototype worth billions. You planned to take that too, didn't you, Mr.?" Yamamoto's composure cracked completely. "How could she possibly—" "Because my daddy was stationed in Okinawa for 4 years, Maya said, switching back to English. "He loved Japan and Japanese people. He taught me to speak your language with respect and honor. But you're not acting with honor." James was now reading the contract intently, his lawyer beside him, both their faces growing darker with each line. "This entire section redefines our partnership structure. According to this language, Crawford Industries would become a subsidiary within 6 months. The AI prototype technology transfers are buried in subsection 12C, his lawyer added grimly. They would gain controlling interest in our most valuable intellectual property." Sarah pulled Maya closer, terrified, but also beginning to understand the magnitude of what her daughter had uncovered. "Maya, baby, Mr. Crawford, Mr. Suzuki said urgently, "There seems to be some misunderstanding. Perhaps we should postpone—" "Oh, there's no misunderstanding," James said, his voice deadly quiet. He looked directly at Maya. "What else did they say?" Maya took a deep breath, remembering her father's lessons about courage and truth. "They said American courts favor written contracts, so by the time you discovered what they'd done, it would be too late to fight it." The Japanese executives began gathering their papers hastily, clearly preparing to leave. "Gentlemen," James said, his tone stopping them cold. "I think we need to have a very different conversation about honor and business ethics." Maya watched as the men who had seemed so powerful just minutes before now appeared cornered and desperate. Her father had always said that truth was stronger than deception, but she'd never seen it proven so dramatically. "How did you know all this?" James asked Maya gently, kneeling down to her eye level. "You understood everything they said?" "Daddy taught me Japanese was beautiful," Maya said simply. But what they were saying wasn't beautiful at all. Sarah found her voice finally. "Sir, I'm so sorry. Maya, we need to go right now." "No," James said firmly, standing up. "Don't apologize. Your daughter just saved my company from being stolen." He turned to the Japanese executives, his expression hard as steel. "This meeting is over. My legal team will be reviewing every document you've ever sent us." Mr. Yamamoto made one last attempt at control. "Mr. Crawford, you're making a serious mistake. Our companies had agreements. Based on deception and theft," James cut him off, "I suggest you leave now." As the three men gathered their materials and headed for the door, Mr. Yamamoto paused near Maya, his eyes cold. In Japanese, he said quietly, "Little girl, you've made very powerful enemies tonight." Maya looked up at him without flinching and replied in perfect Japanese, "My daddy taught me that doing the right thing sometimes makes enemies, but living with honor is worth it." The man's face twisted with anger before he stalked out, followed by his colleagues. The conference room fell silent except for the distant sounds of the restaurant's evening service. James Crawford looked at Maya with an expression she couldn't quite read, surprise, gratitude, and something deeper. "Maya," he said softly, "you just saved me from losing everything I've worked for. How can I possibly thank you?" But before Maya could answer, Sarah's phone buzzed with a text message that would shatter their moment of triumph and change everything once again. Sarah's face went ashen as she read the text message, her hands trembling so violently that the phone nearly slipped from her grasp. James noticed immediately, his business instincts sharpening as he observed her distress. "What's wrong?" he asked gently, while Maya pressed closer to her mother's side. It's from the hospital," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. "They say there's been a mistake with David's medical records. They need me to come in immediately, or they'll release his personal information to debt collectors tomorrow morning." Maya's stomach dropped. Her father's medical bills had been their family's nightmare even before his death. The cancer treatment that hadn't saved him had cost over $200,000, money they'd never had, and debts that now threatened to destroy what remained of their lives. James stepped closer, his expression concerned. "What kind of mistake?" "They claim we forged insurance documents," Sarah said, tears beginning to fall. "But David's military coverage was supposed to handle everything. The insurance company denied the claims after his death, saying his service record was incomplete." "Mama," Maya said softly, "Daddy's service was real. You have his medals." "I know, baby. But medals don't pay medical bills." James felt something twist in his chest as he watched this woman and child facing financial destruction after already losing everything that mattered most. His own parents had died when he was young, leaving him the company and enormous wealth, but also profound loneliness that money couldn't fill. "Mrs. Johnson," he said quietly, "may I ask how much debt we're talking about?" Sarah's pride warred with desperation. We don't take charity, Mr. Crawford. Maya just did what was right. We don't expect anything in return." $247,000, Maya said matter-of-factly, causing both adults to stare at her. "I hear you counting bills at night, Mama. I know the exact number." Sarah's face crumpled with embarrassment and exhaustion. "Maya, you shouldn't. Your daughter just saved me from losing assets worth approximately $800 million, James said firmly. $247,000 is what I spend on coffee for my employees in a month. This isn't charity. It's justice. We can't accept—" "Mama," Maya interrupted, her 8-year-old wisdom cutting through adult pride. "Daddy always said accepting help when you need it takes more courage than giving help when you can afford it." James pulled out his phone. "I'm calling my personal lawyer right now. We're going to handle this hospital situation tonight, and we're going to investigate why your husband's military insurance claims were denied." As James stepped away to make his call, Maya tugged on her mother's uniform sleeve. "Mama, there's something else I need to tell you about Daddy." Sarah knelt down to Maya's eye level. "What is it, sweetheart?" "I remember more Japanese than just what Daddy taught me at home," Maya said carefully. "Sometimes I dream in Japanese, and I understand things I never learned. It's like Daddy left more than just language lessons." Before Sarah could respond, James returned, his expression grim but determined. "Mrs. Johnson, I've got concerning news. My legal team just ran a preliminary check on your husband's military records. According to their initial findings, David Johnson's service record shows classified missions in Japan that were never properly documented in his medical coverage file." "Classified missions?" Sarah repeated, confused. "Your husband wasn't just stationed in Okinawa for 4 years," James continued. "He was involved in intelligence work that required deep cultural integration and language expertise, the kind of work that would explain why he spoke Japanese so perfectly and why he was so passionate about teaching Maya." Maya felt her world tilting. "Daddy was a spy?" "More like a cultural liaison for military intelligence," James explained gently. "But the point is, his medical coverage should have been handled through military intelligence protocols, not standard veteran benefits. Someone deliberately misfiled his paperwork to deny your claims." Sarah sank into one of the conference room chairs, overwhelmed. "Why would someone do that?" James's expression darkened. "That's what we're going to find out. But first, we're handling that hospital debt tonight. Consider it handled." "Mr. Crawford," Sarah started to protest again. "James, please call me James, and Mrs. Johnson, I need you to understand something." He looked directly at both Maya and Sarah. "What your daughter did tonight wasn't just about saving my company. Those Japanese executives weren't just trying to steal from me. They were part of a larger conspiracy involving fraudulent contracts with dozens of American tech companies." Maya exposed an international corporate theft ring. Maya's eyes widened. "Really?" "Really. My security team is already coordinating with federal investigators. Your courage tonight is going to protect a lot of other people from being robbed." Sarah wiped her tears, beginning to comprehend the magnitude of what had unfolded. "I just wanted her to have a normal childhood." "Mama," Maya said softly, "Daddy used to say I was meant to be a bridge between worlds. Maybe this is what he meant." James knelt down to Maya's level again. "Maya, I have a question for you. Would you be interested in helping me with something very important?" "What kind of help?" "My company is developing artificial intelligence that can translate languages and help people from different cultures communicate better. We need someone who truly understands how language builds bridges between people. Someone who learned not just words, but the heart behind the words." Maya looked at her mother, then back at James. "You mean like a job?" "I mean like a partnership. Your mother could work as my family liaison coordinator, helping coordinate my company's community outreach programs. And you could be my youngest cultural consultant, helping us make sure our technology actually brings people together instead of pushing them apart." Sarah's breath caught. "James, that's incredibly generous, but it's not generosity," James interrupted. "It's business. Good business means surrounding yourself with people who have integrity, courage, and insight. Maya has all three. And frankly, after watching her handle international corporate espionage with more grace than my entire legal team, I think Crawford Industries needs the Johnson family more than you need us." Maya felt something warm spreading through her chest, hope mixed with excitement, and the strange sense that her father's spirit was somehow smiling at this moment. "There's one more thing," James said, his tone becoming more serious. "Those executives who just left, they're not going to simply disappear quietly. Exposing their fraud might put you both in some danger. If you accept my offer, I can provide security and protection for your family." Sarah's maternal instincts flared. "What kind of danger?" "Mama," Maya said quietly, "when Mr. Yamamoto left, he told me in Japanese that I'd made powerful enemies. But Daddy taught me that sometimes making the right enemies means you're standing in the right place." James smiled at Maya's wisdom, but his expression remained concerned. "I have excellent security, and I take threats against family very seriously. You'd both be safer working with me than trying to handle this alone." Sarah looked around the elegant conference room, then at her daughter, who had somehow navigated international corporate conspiracy with the composure of someone far beyond her 8 years. "Maya," she said softly, "what do you think?" "I think Daddy would want us to keep building bridges," Maya replied. "And I think James needs people who understand that business should help families, not hurt them." James stood up, extending his hand to Sarah. "Partners?" As Sarah reached out to shake his hand, her phone buzzed again with another text message that would reveal the true scope of the conspiracy they'd stumbled into and the real reason Maya's father had died. The second text message made Sarah's blood run cold. This one wasn't from the hospital. It was from an unknown number, and the message was written in Japanese characters. Maya immediately moved closer to read over her mother's shoulder, her face growing pale as she translated, "The Johnson family knows too much. David Johnson learned our secrets in Okinawa. His daughter will follow the same path unless they disappear quietly." James saw their expressions and immediately stepped forward. "What does it say?" "Someone's threatening us because of what Daddy knew in Japan," Maya said, her voice steady despite her fear. "They're saying I'll end up like him if we don't keep quiet." "They killed my husband," Sarah whispered, the horrifying realization hitting her like a physical blow. "David didn't die from cancer complications. He was murdered." James felt his own anger rising, but forced himself to remain calm for Maya's sake. "We're calling the FBI right now, and you're both staying under my protection until this is resolved." "But how could people from Japan have hurt Daddy here in Seattle?" Maya asked, her brilliant 8-year-old mind working through the logistics. James pulled out his phone to call his security team, but paused as pieces began falling into place. "Maya, what exactly did your father do in Okinawa? Did he ever talk about specific work or people he met?" "He said he helped American businesses understand Japanese culture," Maya replied. "He worked with companies that wanted to build factories and partnerships in Japan. He was really proud because he helped honest companies succeed. But he also said some American businessmen were trying to cheat Japanese companies," Sarah added, memory flooding back. "David was always worried about corruption in international business. He used to say that dishonest Americans made all Americans look bad in Japan." James stopped dialing and stared at them both. What if David discovered something bigger than just business fraud? What if he uncovered an international conspiracy involving both American and Japanese criminals working together? Maya's eyes widened with understanding. "The men tonight, they weren't really from legitimate Japanese companies, were they?" "I don't think so," James said grimly. "I think they're part of a criminal organization that your father threatened to expose. And when he started getting sick, they made sure his medical coverage disappeared so he couldn't afford treatment." Sarah sank into a chair, overwhelmed by the implications. "They murdered him slowly by denying him health care. Which means they've been watching your family for months, waiting to see if David told you anything before he died," James continued. "When Maya spoke Japanese tonight and exposed their fraud, they realized she inherited more than just language skills from her father." Maya walked to the conference room window, looking out at the Seattle skyline. "Daddy used to say that bad people count on good people staying quiet. He said silence helps evil grow stronger." "Maya," her mother called gently, "come away from the window." But Maya turned back to James with determination that seemed far beyond her years. "If we stay quiet now, these people will hurt other families like they hurt ours. And if we run away and hide, Daddy's work protecting people will be for nothing." James studied Maya's face, seeing intelligence and courage that reminded him of his own father's dedication to justice. "What are you thinking, Maya?" "I'm thinking we need to finish what Daddy started," she said simply, "but we need to be smarter than they are." Before anyone could respond, the conference room door burst open. Mr. Romano rushed in, his face flushed with panic. "Mrs. Johnson, Mr. Crawford, there are men outside asking about the little girl who spoke Japanese. They're not police, they look dangerous. My security cameras caught them checking the parking lot and asking my staff questions." James immediately moved to the window, carefully peering through the blinds. In the parking lot below, he could see 2 black SUVs with tinted windows and several men in dark clothing. "They work fast," he muttered. "Mr. Romano, is there a back exit?" Yes, through the kitchen, but— James, Maya interrupted quietly, what if running away is exactly what they want us to do? Everyone turned to look at her. If we disappear tonight, the police will think we're just scared witnesses who don't want to get involved. The FBI won't take us seriously. And these bad people will have time to destroy evidence and disappear. Maya, baby, you're 8 years old, Sarah said gently. It's not your job to catch criminals. But it is my job to honor Daddy's memory, Maya replied. And Daddy always said the best way to trap people who think they're smarter than everyone else is to let them think they're winning. James felt a chill of recognition. Maya, what exactly are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we pretend to be scared and running away, but really we're gathering evidence to prove what they did to Daddy and other families. We make them chase us while you use your resources to build a case against them. Sarah stared at her daughter in amazement and terror. Maya, that's incredibly dangerous. Living in fear for the rest of our lives is dangerous too, Maya pointed out. At least this way we're fighting back. James made a decision that would change all their lives forever. Mr. Romano, call 911 and report suspicious activity in your parking lot. Tell them we need police protection for witnesses in a federal investigation. You're taking an 8-year-old's advice? Sarah asked incredulously. Your 8-year-old just outmaneuvered international criminals once tonight, James replied. I'm betting she can do it again. But Maya, he turned to her seriously, if we do this, we do it my way. Professional security, FBI coordination, and you and your mother stay safe at all times. Deal? Maya looked at her mother, then at James, then at the window where dangerous men waited in the darkness. Deal, she said, but I have one condition. What's that? When we catch these people, I want to speak to them in Japanese one more time. I want to tell them that David Johnson's daughter doesn't run away from bullies. As sirens began wailing in the distance, Maya realized that her father's death had been the beginning of something much larger than personal grief. Tonight, she would begin the journey that would transform her from a grieving child into an instrument of justice and reveal secrets about her father's life that would shake international law enforcement to its core. 6 months later, Maya stood in a federal courthouse in downtown Seattle, wearing her best dress and holding a thick folder containing evidence that had taken down an international criminal conspiracy spanning 3 countries. The shy 8-year-old who had hidden in restaurant corners had transformed into a confident young witness whose testimony would put dangerous people behind bars for life. Are you ready, sweetheart? Sarah asked, smoothing Maya's hair with gentle hands. Sarah looked completely different too. Gone was the exhausted waitress uniform, replaced by a professional Navy suit that marked her new role as Crawford Industries Director of Family Services. I'm ready, Mama, Maya replied, her Japanese and English language skills now serving the FBI's International Crime Division as they built cases against corporate fraud rings operating across Asia and America. James Crawford approached them in the courthouse hallway, his expression proud but protective. Over the past 6 months, he had become much more than an employer to the Johnson family. He had become the father figure Maya needed and the partner Sarah had never expected to find. The defense lawyers are going to try to intimidate you, James warned Maya gently. Remember, you just tell the truth exactly like you've been practicing. I remember everything, James, Maya said confidently, and I have something special planned for Mr. Yamamoto. Taisai, through their investigation, they had discovered that David Johnson had been murdered because he'd uncovered a massive conspiracy involving fraudulent military contracts, stolen patents, and the systematic targeting of American veterans' families to cover up corporate crimes. The Japanese executives who had tried to steal James's company were actually part of an international crime syndicate that had been operating for over a decade. David's intelligence work in Okinawa had made him a threat because he'd identified American businessmen who were selling military secrets to foreign criminals while simultaneously helping those criminals steal from legitimate Japanese companies. When David had started documenting evidence, the conspiracy had arranged for his medical coverage to disappear, knowing his cancer treatment costs would bankrupt his family and distract him from pursuing justice. Maya Johnson to the witness stand, called the court clerk. Maya walked confidently through the courtroom, past the defense table where Mr. Yamamoto sat with his lawyers, his face a mask of controlled anger. She had learned over the past months that real courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was choosing to do the right thing even when fear tried to stop you. "Maya," said the prosecutor, a kind woman named Ms. Rodriguez, "can you tell the court what you heard Mr. Yamamoto say in Japanese on the night of September 15th? Maya took a deep breath and began recounting the events that had started this incredible journey. She spoke clearly and precisely, translating the conversations she had overheard and explaining how her father's language lessons had prepared her to understand the criminal conspiracy. When she finished her testimony, the defense lawyer stood up to cross-examine her. "Maya," he said in a condescending tone, "you were only 8 years old that night. How can we trust the memory of a child about complex business conversations?" Maya looked directly at Mr. Yamamoto, then back at the lawyer. "Sir, my daddy taught me that language is a bridge between hearts. When people use language to hurt others instead of helping them, children remember that very clearly. But surely you might have misunderstood. Would you like me to demonstrate my Japanese fluency for the court?" Maya interrupted politely. "I can repeat Mr. Yamamoto's exact words in both languages." The lawyer glanced nervously at his client, who was shaking his head frantically. "That won't be necessary," the lawyer said quickly. "Actually," Maya said, standing up slightly in the witness chair, "I think it is necessary." She turned to look directly at Mr. Yamamoto and spoke in clear, perfect Japanese. "Yamamoto-san, my father, David Johnson, died because you and your partners stole his medical coverage. He spent his last months worrying about my mama and me instead of fighting for justice. But his daughter learned his lessons about courage and honor. Today, justice wins." The courtroom fell silent. Mr. Yamamoto's face had gone completely white, and his lawyers were frantically whispering to each other. Maya switched back to English. "My daddy always said that people who hurt families eventually have to face the families they hurt. Today is that day." "No further questions," the defense lawyer said quickly, clearly wanting to end Maya's testimony before she could say anything else. As Maya walked back to her seat, she felt her father's presence with her, not as grief or sadness, but as strength and pride. David Johnson's sacrifice had not been in vain. 3 hours later, the jury returned with guilty verdicts on all counts. Mr. Yamamoto and his co-conspirators would spend the rest of their lives in federal prison for international fraud, conspiracy, and the murder of David Johnson. Outside the courthouse, reporters gathered around the unusual family that had brought down an international crime ring. "Maya," called one reporter, "what do you want to do when you grow up?" Maya looked up at James and Sarah, then back at the reporters. "I want to keep building bridges between people who want to help each other, and I want to help stop people who want to hurt families like mine." "Will you continue working with Crawford Industries?" asked another reporter. James stepped forward, putting protective hands on both Maya's and Sarah's shoulders. "Maya and Sarah Johnson are family now. Crawford Industries is developing a new international justice program that helps families who've been victims of corporate crime. Maya will be our youngest advisor when she's ready, and Sarah is already running our family support services." And Sarah added, her voice strong and clear, "We're establishing the David Johnson Foundation to help other military families who face medical coverage fraud. David always believed that protecting one family meant protecting all families." Maya smiled, thinking about how much her life had changed since that night when she had been too afraid to speak Japanese and too small to imagine she could make a difference. Now, at 9 years old, she was traveling the world with James and Sarah, helping other children who had witnessed crimes but were too scared to speak up. She had learned that being a bridge between worlds meant more than just translating languages. It meant translating courage from one heart to another. 6 months later, Maya would receive a special recognition from the FBI for her service to international justice. But the moment she treasured most was that evening in the courthouse, when she had finally been able to tell the men who killed her father that David Johnson's daughter was everything he had raised her to be: brave, honorable, and unafraid to speak truth in any language. As the Johnson-Crawford family walked away from the courthouse together, Maya carried with her the knowledge that sometimes the smallest voices carry the biggest truths, and that love and justice like language itself, build bridges that no criminal conspiracy can ever destroy. The 8-year-old girl who had once been invisible in places where her family couldn't afford to belong had become a force for justice that would protect families around the world for generations to come. And in her heart, she knew her father was proud.